I want to thank Senior Vice Commander and our President, Annie O'Connor, for being here, and our wonderful chaplain behind me. You know, when Commander Gary McLean asked me to speak on the 4th of July here at our post, I readily accepted it. It's always an honor to be around great Americans who belong to our post and our auxiliary. And since we all know about the 4th of July from school, I thought it would be an easy task. And besides, being a candidate for elected office, it would be great visibility among the voters. So thank you very much. Now, Gary later asked me to do 10 or 15 minutes. Wow, 10 or 15 minutes? It's been a long time since I was in school and listened to and learned about our American Revolution. And I'm ashamed to admit it, but history was not my favorite or my best subject. So I set upon doing some research for the talk. After a few days of research, I began my draft from the textbook approach I took. About the 4th page of the draft, I realized why I didn't necessarily like or do well in history. So I thought about it some more and began from a political point of view. The Declaration of Independence was unanimously adopted by the Congress on July 4th, 1776. Another day of research and 3 pages of draft, I said, wait, I don't think Commander McLean or you wanted me to talk about the international politics circa 1700s. All of what I was about to tell you is what we learned about in school. What's the message or point of celebrating the 4th of July? What did it mean then, and what does it mean today, if anything? The more I thought about it, the more I read and wrote, and the more I became confused. I almost decided to read you the Declaration of Independence, but when I told Anna my plan, she didn't think it was a good idea. So here we are on the 4th of July, among present-day patriots who have stood up for our great nation in times of war and peace. What should I talk about? Well, I'll talk about 2 things, a little bit about our history and the causes for our Declaration of Independence, and why we celebrate it today. Now, we learned in grade school that in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue, and that on July 4th, 1776, the Declaration of Independence was signed. But what happened in those 284 intervening years that made them revolt? As you remember, explorers came from several countries: Spain, Portugal, France, England. They landed and established independent colonies or settlements in the New World. The settlements were populated by an assortment of people, each with a reason for leaving their homeland and exchanging their hardships there for our hardships here in colonial life. As the years went by, the 13 colonies making the original states came under British rule, and the population became British subjects. Each colony had a governor who carried out the king's directives. Now, the colonists, as subjects to the king, had to obey and support him. Each of the colonies had individual issues with the king, and some of them they had jointly with the king. Communications at the time was a problem, because when you wanted to send a message to the king, you had to jump on horseback, you had to go to the port, jump on a ship, 30 days across the ocean, jump in a carriage, go see the king, and come back. So it was pretty tough to get that communication. Now, communication among the colonists was faster, as they communicated by way of newsletters and correspondence. And these communiques aided in forming and building a consensus of what a good government could be and should be. Now, we also learned in school that the root cause of the revolution was taxes. Taxes on tea in particular. Ben Franklin was even sent to England to plead to have the tax repealed. And after a while it was. However, it was replaced with a stamp tax. This stamp tax required a stamp on almost every item that you would purchase, from official documents even to playing cards. And although the taxes weren't very high at all, the idea of being taxed with no one representing their interest was a denial of their rights as British subjects. Thus, the cry, "Taxation without representation is tyranny," was heard across the colonies. In 1768, the British established a large military presence in Boston to put down the revolt and to enforce the tax laws. In 1770, in Boston, a group of colonists surrounded a British military unit and bombarded them with with snowballs and rocks and pebbles. Finally, the British shot into the crowd. They shot, they shot 11 folks and killed 3 of them. One of the first, and maybe the first killed during the Revolution, was a man by the name of Crispus Attucks. Crispus Attucks. He was a black patriot. The Sons of Liberty and other patriots grew to about 7,000 to 8,000 strong, and they formed a committee of correspondence at the colony and local levels. These committees became the leadership corps of the Revolution. Now, to combat the colonists' attempt at organizing, the British in 74 and 75 enacted lots of laws that restricted town meetings in Boston, held that British soldiers would only be tried for crimes in England, closed the Boston harbor and port, and allowed British governors to quarter soldiers in civilian homes without permission of the owners. It didn't sit well with the colonists. Patriots formed a provincial Congress and began training militia outside of Boston. In September 1774, the First Continental Congress, consisting of representatives from all of the colonies, was held. And in secret, they decided to boycott all British goods beginning December 1st, 1774. The battles at Lexington and Concord in April 75 signal the start of the true hostilities. Patriots overthrew the colonial governments. They closed the courts and drove the British officials out of the colonies. Each of the colonies elected a new convention and legislature outside of any legal authority. Some of them just took their old British charter and deleted all references to the crown and used them to supersede the royal charters. They were now states and not colonies. What had happened in the view of the colonists was its government and king had overstepped its role. The colonists now, serious, articulate, intelligent, and of similar mind, set about to tell the king the reasoning behind their Declaration of Independence and listed the specifics of the actions that supported their position in the first few paragraphs of the Declaration. The unanimous Declaration of the 13 United States of America, it begins. When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted by man, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute new government. Pretty plain what the intent and what the cause was. 56 patriots signed the Declaration, thereby signing their death warrants for treason if the revolution failed. And though today we celebrate with joy and frivolity the document, at the time there was no joy and there was much apprehension, for this was the actual beginning of an all-out shooting war of the revolution. Now, the patriots didn't fight alone. Franklin went back to France to ask for help. When the Americans captured the British Army at Saratoga in '78, the French formally entered the war in support of our Congress. The Treaty of Amity and Commerce and the Treaty of Alliance were signed by the U.S. and France. In '79 and '80, Spain and Dutch became allies of France and also our own allies. The war went on until the Treaty of Paris was signed on September 3rd, 1783. So although many believe we celebrate the 4th of July, 1776 as a victory, it was really just the start of a birthing process that took 7 more years. As we reflect on the Declaration and specific charges against King George III, we can see why the authors of our Constitution included some of these items in our Bill of Rights right up front. We enjoy today the spirit of '76 that burns in our hearts and minds, that man has inalienable rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. He has the right to assemble freely, freely practice his religion, speak freely, protect his home from quartering, and freely elect representatives at all levels remains till today. All of the specific charges against the king, our Constitution now protects us from these potential abuses from our government. Now, what else is true today that was true in 1776? At the time of the Revolution, only 40 to 45% of the population of the 13 colonies supported the revolution. Only 40 to 45% supported the revolution. 15 to 20% were loyalists. They were British subjects, they wanted to remain loyal. The remaining 35 to 45%, they were neutral or maintained a low profile. So our nation was divided then, and it's divided today. Today we have a small, dedicated group of Americans who, just as during the Revolution, are willing to defend their rights with their life if called upon. And for these reasons, we celebrate the anniversary of July 4th, 1776, our nation's birthday. And so today, we celebrate these first American patriots who set the example and set the bar for all of our patriots of yesterday, and those still positioned around the world in defense of our great nation, and those that will come thereafter. Let us never forget their sacrifice and our great fortune to be Americans. Thank you very much. God bless America. Thanks.